Okay, so we all know that the MCU timeline is pretty much insane at this point, but it seems to me the Spider-Man movies are particularly egregious when it comes to attempting to give dates and ages for the characters. The 8 years later thing is already a meme, but Far From Home did another oopsie, and nobody is talking about it. Due to how Thanos' snap works, Far From Home states definitively that Peter Parker is 16 years old, and the trailer shows his birthday on his passport as August 10th. I made particular note of this on my Far From Home trailer reaction. I knew they did it. I knew that. That's actually really cool. So, this is an Easter egg right here. You see Peter Parker's date of birth is the 10th of August, which is really cool because my birthday is actually the 14th of August. The birthday thing may or may not be canon, as this scene wasn't included in the theatrical cut of the film, but Spider-Man as a character was introduced in the comics on August 10th, 1962, so thematically it lines up. Also, after some digging around, I was able to find various sources claiming MCU Peter's birthday is August 10th or August 10th, 2001, so let's assume that it is canon. Here are the facts. Fact number 1. Civil War and Homecoming take place in 2016. Vision states that Stark has been Iron Man for 8 years, which began in 2008.
In the 8 years since Mr. Stark announced himself as Iron Man, the number of known enhanced persons has grown exponentially.
And Marvel's official yet half-wrong timeline also sets Civil War and Homecoming in 2016, so we know these films are definitively set in 2016. This is where Peter is introduced as a 15-year-old sophomore in high school. Homecoming shows that the school year has already started, and high school semesters in America, more specifically New York, typically begin in late August, early September. If Peter's birthday is actually August 10th, at minimum, in Homecoming, he had to have just turned 15. Fact number 2. Ant-Man is on house arrest for 2 years for his part in the events of Civil War. This event is extremely important for the timeline, as it lets us know how much time has passed between Civil War and Infinity War.
Come on, Wu. I've got 3 days left. Why would I try to escape?
Why can't you just leave my daddy alone?
This must all seem like a bunch of confusing grown-up stuff to you, huh? Well, your daddy went to Germany and drew on the walls with Captain America. Now, as a part of his joint plea deal with Homeland Security, he was allowed to return to the U.S., provided he served 2 years under house arrest, followed by 3 years of probation.
Hope, Hank, and Janet are all killed at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp by Thanos' snap, meaning Ant-Man and the Wasp take place just before the events and climax of Infinity War. This means 2 years have passed since the events of Civil War, as Hope, Hank, and Janet are snapped after Scott completes his house arrest. No matter what, 2 years have already passed since Peter's sophomore school year started. Here's the conclusion. There is no way Peter is anything less than 17 years old in Far From Home. Peter dies in Infinity War, which we know happens after Scott has already served his 2-year house arrest. When Peter returns from the blip, he calls himself a 16-year-old kid, which, according to math, is incorrect. He should be a senior in high school. Here are a few things that lend credence to what I am saying. And keep in mind this supposes that, in a bubble, the MCU Spider-Man films along with Civil War are the culprits for messing up the MCU timeline. We're not talking about the 8 years later thing, so I'll repeat this because inevitably someone is going to comment on this video because they aren't listening. In a bubble, the Spider-Man films are the ones that are wrong and cause the problems in the timeline. Here's the first point. Homecoming takes place in October 2016. We know this because the film has an upcoming homecoming dance, or the namesake of the film. Homecoming in America usually takes place in October. Peter is also shown to be fully in the school year, as in he's not just starting his sophomore year. Point number 2. There is a time skip of 2 months from Spider-Man's participation in Civil War to Homecoming. The beginning of Homecoming takes place 2 days after the airport fight, according to the documentary filmed by Peter and stated explicitly by Tony Stark.
Hey, May! My gosh, I want to tell you what an incredible job your nephew did this weekend at the Stark internship. This weekend.
Immediately after, the film skips to 2 months later. If we accept that the film takes place in October, that would set at least the airport scene of Civil War in late August 2016. Peter's birthday is August 10th. This means he is already 15 years old. I know what you're thinking. How do we know Civil War is set in August? Well, point number 3. Peter mentions in Civil War that he already has homework, which is his excuse for not being able to go to Germany and fight with Iron Man.
I can't go to Germany.
Why?
I got homework.
I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that.
No, I'm being serious. I can't just drop out of school.
Might be a little dangerous.
This means school has already begun, and the school year begins in late August, early September, and ends in June in the United States. This makes Peter already 15 in the events of Civil War. This perfectly lines up with the 2-month time skip to October when the homecoming dance is supposed to take place. Couple this with the fact that he dies after Ant-Man serves his 2-year house arrest. This means Infinity War takes place somewhere between late August through December 2018, as we learn Peter's class is on a school trip to the MoMA, indicating that school is indeed in session. This ultimately means Peter should be 17 at the time of Infinity War. Now, I posted this theory on Reddit and my Twitter, and I set them on fire with people claiming I'm wrong about the times in which Civil War and Homecoming take place. I've listened to the various takes ranging from Civil War takes place in April, May, or June, all the way to someone providing this prop from Spider-Man Homecoming, detailing the Homecoming dance as late September 2016, which would ultimately prove that I'm wrong about the film taking place in October 2016. Here's the problem with all of these explanations. Firstly, when Peter meets Tony Stark for the first time, he claims that he has homework. This means that the school semester has already started. My detractors have all claimed that Peter was 14 at this point, and that this is the end of his freshman year in high school, which would line up with Far From Home detailing that Peter is only 16 in that film's events. But the problem is that A, we know Peter's participation in Civil War lasts for about 2 or 3 days, as detailed by Tony Stark referring to the Stark internship, aka the fight in Germany, taking place over a weekend. And B, the immediate time skip of 2 months from the point Peter is filming his documentary and the beginning of Homecoming. Think about it. 2 months from April is June. Homecoming obviously doesn't take place in June, especially considering we're talking about Peter's high school preparing for the Homecoming dance, or the namesake of the film. I've never heard of any school celebrating Homecoming in June. 2 months from May is July. Obviously, Homecoming doesn't take place in July because school would be in summer vacation. This also rules out Civil War taking place in June because 2 months from June is August. And in Homecoming, we see that the school year is in full swing, not to mention what school in their right mind would have the Homecoming in August, or almost immediately as the school year begins. It just doesn't make sense. Now, this prop from the film seems to be the most damning evidence against my theory. It shows the Homecoming dance as dated for September 23rd. There's nothing wrong with the Homecoming dance taking place in September, as they are usually held in late September or October. The problem is this date doesn't match up with the events as presented in Civil War and the time skip in Homecoming. 2 months prior to September is July. This is incongruous with Civil War showing that Peter is in fact in school already, as July is when they would have summer vacation. So this prop is a legitimate cinema sin, or a continuity error. The only time frame that makes any sense is that the airport fight in Civil War takes place in August, as in late August, the school year should have begun already, leading Peter to explain to Tony Stark that he cannot go to Germany as he has homework. As shown in the beginning of Homecoming, Peter's trip to Germany lasts a weekend, meaning he comes back to New York in August. Immediately after returning to New York in August, the film skips 2 months ahead to October, which is right on time for a Homecoming dance. All of this means that Peter was already 15 years old at the time of his participation in Civil War. Since Ant-Man goes on house arrest for exactly 2 years after his participation in the Germany fight, and Thanos' snap happens after Scott gets off house arrest, Peter should have been 17 years old after returning from the blip in Spider-Man Far From Home.
Holy shit!
As always, thank you so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk. Do you disagree with my assessment? Please let me know why in the comment section below. I am more than happy to write a 1,500-word essay detailing precisely why you're wrong. Anyway, this has been your friendly neighborhood Birdman, and I'll catch you later.